Well, here we go, folks. We're back on the Caddy. Been off her for a little bit. We've got to carry on. We got to do some of our service work here, so we want all the fluids changed in this thing. So we're going to start it out here with the front diff. First and foremost, before you drain something, make sure you can get the fill hole opened, because that sucks when you can't. We're going to let this PP here, and we're going to go hit the drain on the transfer case and then also the rear differential. Get all that stuff drizzling out of there. Now all this fluid all over here is from the leaking hydro boost, which we have to change that also. That's pissing out of there pretty good. And it's got some coolant leaks too up on the heater core connections. We need to fix those. So this is your typical Chevrolet front diff fluid. They're always nasty and gray, and the biggest thing is you want to make sure the end of your magnet doesn't look like a giant porcupine. Now this one has a few prickers on it, not terrible, but pretty normal, I would say. So anyhow, we're going to let this drain. Pull both these out, set these aside. This stuff is thick like molasses, so it usually takes quite a while for that to drizzle out, and we'll go pop the plug out of the transfer case. Transfer case just takes a standard 3/8 square. Crack our drain loose here, and again, make sure the fill hole, which somebody has been checking or playing with there, you can see they've got it jammed down in the case pretty good. You have to be careful with pipe style plugs, especially on magnesium or aluminum. You can pretty easily crack the case. And then the other thing with transfer case fluid too, I guess with any fluid, is make sure you have the correct fluid before you drain it out. Does it take ATF? Does it take, special transfer case fluid? GM ran that Auto Track 2 stuff for quite a while. So we'll pull the drain on that. She looks pretty dark. And we'll also pull the fill hole. Oh, fella. Make sure you don't miss the bucket. There we go. We'll let this sit here and drizzle. There, definitely dig a little mud out of the fill plug. Make sure we're going to stick our 3/8 square in there. Remember, every tool's got a hammer side. And then make sure we get that baby loose. And we can, so that's good. Take that out all the way. We're going to set that baby right there so we don't lose it. And we got to pull the cover off this one, because putting a drain on it right here would have been way too easy. I think these are 13. Some of these I think you have to wrench out, perhaps. We'll see. I'm going to go through. I'm going to crack them all loose, and I have to be careful with some of these because they can have a little Loctite on them, and you might have to apply a little bit of heat. But this truck is in pretty good shape, rust-wise, which we're fortunate. And then we're going to come through with a little air ratchet. We'll zip all these out. We'll get our bucket ready, and then we'll crack the cover loose and let her drain. I left one bolt up in the top here. Make sure it's finger tight. That sucker came out. Whack it hard. Actually, I should probably run it out. Let's stick it back in there. Just to be on the safe side. These Loctite bolts. There we go. Think of the Vanessa O. Actually, of course, I leave it the hardest one to get to. Let's see. So leave that in just to keeps the pan from hitting the bucket and splashing you in the face, technically. So make sure you got your bucket ready. We're gonna get behind there. Ooh, had my bucket ready. Take my own advice. Usually they crack a little bit harder than that. But the good news is the whole pan didn't come down and splash in our bucket. That should come off there just like so. So we'll let this drizzle for a little bit. And then the magnet in here does not look like a porcupine, so that's good. Now it's just a matter of putting things back together, folks. So we're going to put the drain plug back in the transfer case here. I did put a little bit of liquid thread lock on it. So this is some Permatex. They don't sponsor us. Seal and lock thread compound. That'll keep that baby from PPing, keep it from rattling out of there. Like I say, be careful when you're putting in the pipe plugs, because you can just keep going until something explodes, and that's what you don't want. I'll wipe that off there. Wipe it on a rag right here, and then we're gonna fill this one. This one takes just standard ATF. We're gonna be using some Valvoline Max Life. It is my habit when they use ATF, I'll use the same stuff that we're gonna be using in the transmission, you know, in case the seal goes and they start intermixing. So, anyhow, just kind of my thoughts on that. So we'll grab some of the fluid and get her filled up. So we're gonna be using our little fluid transfer pump, which works quite well. Make sure you got your bucket lined up. I'll put a link to this baby in the description. This works on a standard cordless drill. We're just gonna do this. You just fill this one until it starts PPing out of the hole. Always misses the bucket. Well, there we are, folks. We'll let that achieve its level. We'll let her drizzle there for a minute. Pull the fluid back out of our tube here. Kind of cool thing about this pump, you can just run it in reverse and clear your tubes, put it right back in the container. So we're going to take the other plug. I'm going to put a little bit of thread sealer on it. And then we'll stick that one in there. I don't know if they have a torque spec on a pipe style drain plug or not. I just like to use some common sense. A little short handle, that's what you can do. If you can't control yourself, choke up on the handle of your ratchet a little bit there. That should keep you in check. And then we'll just spritz off the overflow here, just to be sure. Because when we drive it, we're going to take and just double check everything for leaks and dryness. Now we're going to take and clear out the hoses. We need to clean out the hoses on our fluid transfer pump here, and then we're going to go right to the front differential and fill it up. So same thing on front differential, you know, clean your plug up, get the porcupines off the magnet. Now these use a plastic washer, so, you know, if you want to replace the washer, replace the bolt, you know, replace the differential, whatever parts you want to change there. Otherwise, just put it back in, torque it to factory specs, and all that stuff, and then we'll clean off the little drip there hanging on the bottom. You don't need pipe sealer on these or thread sealer. Make sure your top plug's already cleaned out, ready to go. And this takes some standard run-of-the-mill 80W90. Brought to you by Valvoline. Not a sponsor. At this point, it's a good time if you wanted to change it to synthetic. You could go ahead and do so if you felt inclined to do that. And then same thing, we're going to use our fluid transfer pump. And we're going to pump it up in there. And same thing as the transfer case, you do it until it PPs out the hole. I think the only one that's different is going to be the rear diff and, you know, the engine oil. You never want to fill that till it comes out the cap. There she is, finally. Gosh, that was almost 2 quarts. About 1.9 quarts, so planning on having about 2 quarts around there. So it's just peeing out the hole. Like I said, make sure you already got this plug all cleaned up, and you know, you got a new plug, a new washer, a new wrench, and new car and all that stuff to put on there. And then we'll take and just right down here, move this jug out of the way so we don't make a huge mess. We'll grab the torque wrench, and then we're going to snug her up, and then we'll get torque wrench. We'll get her all torqued to factory specs. Make sure that's all good. Again, we'll clean everything off so we can identify any new leaks, if there is any. Now the rear diff, we've got to go through and get all the rust and the crust off it. So I'm just going to go along with the scraper here. On the pickup trucks, you can come up here with a whizzy wheel, but these ones you just don't have the room. So I like to cover up the differential with some rags, keep the junk from getting on it. And then we're just going to go around this till it gets clean. Same thing with the cover. The cover I'll just take on the grinder, and we'll just use the wire wheel on the grinder and get it cleaned up. Get everything kind of ready to go together here. So like I say, we clean this off on the wire wheel. Just get all the junk off the magnet, and then we're going to spray a little gasket adhesive on here. Let that start tacking up when we finish cleaning off the rear diff. And then we're going to use a paper gasket. That's what they have from the factory. If you don't have one, you can always silicone it. Or if you feel more comfortable with silicone, that works equally as well. Permatex, not a sponsor, that's who makes this stuff conveniently under the label. I think Spray Tac they call it. They do make a gear lube specific silicone and a transmission fluid specific silicone, if you're so inclined to go that route. I just like the way this stuff smells, if I'm being honest. So yeah, we got a good coating on there. We'll wait for that to get real tacky, then we'll stick the gasket on it and spray the other side of the gasket and stick her up there. Then we'll just let that dry. And then we'll just sneak it on up here, make sure you got it about where you want it when you stick her on there, because that stuff is sticky. We're going to stick our bolts in it. I did put a little bit of Loctite on them. A little bit of the purple. I think it is the 222 Loctite, I think is the part number on it. It's a very low strength Loctite. Kind of get this thing slipped around here where we need it. Then we'll go through and just torque all these to factory specs, of course. And then get to filling it up. Once that is done, it just, again, becomes a matter of just filling it. Now this uses 75/90 full synthetic in the rear end on this Chevrolet. Now this one you do not fill until it comes out the PP hole. So bear that in mind. I'll have to look. It's some spec, I don't know, a 1/4 inch below the hole, something or other. So we're gonna start putting some in and then periodically have to go check it. I'll go get the spec. I think it would have been easier just to put the hole at the spec, but I don't know. According to service info, 15 to 40 millimeters below the surface of the hole. So 0.6 to 1.6 inches. And they tell you to check it with a pipe cleaner because, you know, what shop doesn't have a bunch of pipe cleaners laying around? So I just take a zip tie, bend it in your classic L shape, come over here, stick her down in level with the hole, see where we're at. We're not touching the dipstick yet, so we're going to put in a little more. It doesn't seem like rocket surgery when we have such a big variance of where full is, 0.6 to 1.6 inches. Seems kind of ridiculous. I believe we have achieved the level. Yep, so right at the tip here. So about 3/4 of an inch down. If we want to be sure, I guess we can add a bigger L into this. You could probably get out your tape measure, but when they have such a huge variance in what is full, I guess the eyeballing is close because you can see the difference between 15 and 40 millimeters, but yeah, there we are. So we're about 3/4 of an inch to that mark. Oh, more like 7/8 of an inch. I was close. So that's 2 little marks past the 3/4 mark. So good enough. So free tip Friday for you. Put a little thread sealer on your plug, stick it in, torque it to spec, hit it with some of the brake clean, just so we can inspect for leaks. Dry that off around there. And here comes the free tip. Everybody hang on, this is one me Ma taught me. You're gonna take your grease gun, give her 1 pump of grease right there in the middle, smush it right in that, leave her right flush. Trust me, in a couple years, your mechanic will thank me. Or at least the next time he checks it and he doesn't have to dig rust out of it. Dig out a gob of grease with some dirt on it, way easier. At this point, what you would normally do is take it for a shake, rip it around town, bring it back in, just kind of double check stuff. Maybe not necessarily fluid levels, but because you know they're full, just fluid leaks. Make sure all your drain plugs are nice and sealed up, and that's it. The only thing you've got left to do is head into that comment section. It's the comments, the concerns, you know it all, folks. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.